Novocaine today. Welcome to the Hometown Iowa podcast. This is Trey, as always. Glad you could join us again. This episode is brought to you by Marathon Media. Marathon Media celebrates entrepreneurs and small businesses by partnering and promoting local talent, artisans, and causes because they believe that when your neighbors and succeed, we all prosper. Every milestone in life deserves lovingly captured. Marathon Media is your one-stop shop. That be photo, video, website, social media management. Visit their website at www.marathonmedia.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram at Marathon Media CC. Glad you could join us again. You'll see I'm repping the Cubs since we're in the playoffs, and I thought that would be my shirt for today. So go Cubs. They play later tonight. This episode, we have Charles City Police Chief Hugh Anderson with us. Hugh, we're super glad that you were able to join us. We know you're a busy guy, and glad you could take a few minutes to sit with us.
Thanks for inviting me, Trey.
You
Glad
bet.
to be here.
So maybe we'd start, we like to get a little background, maybe share a little bit about your history in law enforcement.
Okay. I got on to the Charles City Police Department in 1990 as a reserve. You may remember, I'm not sure if you were back that far, but there was a grocery store where Ace Hardware is now called Easter's.
Okay.
So I was working at Easter's. I was a shift manager at the time and working 3 to 11s mainly. And then I'd work on the weekends. Sometimes I'd work overnights by choosing and just for, I guess, a little something different. So I was working some overnights there, and we kept getting a lot of thefts, a lot of liquor thefts. People would come in, look at the liquor, grab a bottle, run out the door and everything else. And so it got to be the point where I was actually enjoying chasing them down. So I'd chase them down, grab them, call law enforcement. They'd come and arrest them, do whatever had to be done at that point. And it just got to be, I got to know the officers pretty well. They started stopping in on break. And then I had one where he took off. He had 2 bottles of liquor. He chucked one at me as we were running out of the store.
Wow.
Broke that in the parking lot. When he acted like that was the only one he had. And he said, "Quit chasing me." Well, I knew he had another one. So kept on him. He jumps in the river. No idea what I was thinking at that point. But I thought, well, I might as well catch this guy. So I jump in the river after him, catch him in the middle of the river, a little bit of scuffle and everything else. I haul him back out of the river and I get back and the officers are standing there because my partner there in the grocery store had called. And Brian Pohl, he's like, "Man, you just really like this. You need to join our reserve police force." And so that's sort of how it actually all happened. I joined the reserve police force in 1990, got on full-time in 1994, and really enjoyed my career so far. So
Great.
Went through a lot of different things in the police department. Through my career, I got trained as a drug recognition expert. Went down to Phoenix for that training. Very, very interesting. If you remember Joe Arpaio, the sheriff down there, he had Tent City. He had them wearing pink underwear, pink socks, and then he had the white and black striped uniforms for the people who were incarcerated there. So went down there at that time, met him. Very, very interesting the training was. So what we would do, there's actually a deputy here in town now that's been trained in that. But what we'd do is they'd pull people into the jail that they had arrested, and then we'd try to determine what type of drug, what type of substance they might be on. So it's pretty involved. We do both the pulse, temperature, blood pressure, everything, look at their eyes and everything and try to determine, are they on a stimulant? Are they on, a narcotic analgesic? What are they on? And then try to determine from there what they were on. Really good training. Did a lot of OWIs in my early career, did a lot of those, did a lot of drug arrests. And we were at that time, we were just getting to the point where officers themselves could actually do search warrants. So we didn't have to have the investigator come and do the search warrant with us. So myself and some of the other officers did a lot of those, got those going. And then it got to the point where we were getting pretty busy. And so they made a second shift investigator, which was a uniform position. I applied for that and I got hired on as the investigator on second shift. Worked with that for a few years and then applied for the lieutenant's position when that came open. And from there, I was on 3 to 11 for quite a few years. I worked 3 to 11s. In fact, my body, I think, is still used to working 3 to 11. I'm not a early morning person, and now I'm up and in by 7 o'clock in the morning every day. And if I had my way, I would still get off at 11 o'clock and work out and watch movies and everything, and stay up and then get up at 8 or 9. My body's sort of used to that. So, but otherwise, from that point then, applied for the captain's position under Mike Wendell was the chief at that time, and worked under Mike for quite a few years as the captain. And then when he retired, I applied for the chief's position, and either good or bad, I got granted that, and I've been doing that now for over 10 years. Okay. So
been that long?
It has. It's gone by. Guy stopped by. He was an officer in actually Cedar Falls, and he used to be a dispatcher here years and years and years ago. And he just stopped by probably about 3 hours ago at the police department, and we got to talking and reminiscing about a lot of the old guys and the old times and everything else. And a lot of them have, passed on. So It's been dispatchers. I've seen a lot of dispatchers, a lot of officers go through 30 some years in law enforcement. Wow. So it's hard to believe I've been on that long, and it's hard to believe I've been in the chief's position since then. After I got the chief's position, then I was working under Steve Deers. Steve Deers hired me, and he promoted me then to public safety director. Public safety director then is I actually oversee the police department, the fire department, and code enforcement. Okay. So it's sort of an octopus. I'm all over the place all the time. So not just doing law enforcement, I end up, doing all three. It takes me to meet a lot of different people. So that's probably one of my favorite things about the job is getting to meet different people. I mean, there's times when if I was working in a different profession, I wouldn't meet the people that I've met. So I started out, and it's, for those of you who know me now, probably wouldn't believe, but I started out as being a very introverted person when I started in law enforcement. And I don't know if I'm extroverted or not. Most people would say I am, but I don't have issues now speaking with people and just conversing with people. So I'll stop people on the street and just start talking to them. And that's part of the job that I really love. I love just meeting people, getting their backgrounds, talking to people, on a one-on-one level, and finding out what they're about and what makes them tick, what they like about the community, what they don't like about the community. And
well, I would guess that would serve you well as public safety director or police chief, to know people. So when things go down, you have relationships built with as many people as you can, so that goes well. So
it does. And then and not to get too far off the subject, but we get into the remodel then of City Hall Police Department. There were so many things that I knew, because before this, so previous to this, I'm working at the Easter's grocery store. But before that, and then during that time, I'm also working out at Wildwood. So I've been with the city since the 80s. And so there's just so many things I knew either about the building itself or about maybe the wiring underneath, outside, and everything else. So it was one of those things that was good to, I guess, still be involved in that aspect too, with the remodel and everything else. So,
yeah, how's that coming? Is that getting close to being done, or?
Well, not close, but as you go by, you'll see it, and it's a lot different. I can tell you where the offices are going to be now inside. Cool. Before it was, you had to really imagine where everything was going to be, but with the work that's moving that wall out then to the east or toward the library there, it's created so much more space in there. And when the talk first got going is, hey, should we tear it down? Should we build new? Should we, if you remember, the police parked, on the north side and back, and then in the back on City Hall side, there's a grass area. And they talked about it one time, hey, let's build that out there and add to the building. And through a lot of discussion with architects and engineers and everything else, we thought, let's bump out the wall. And so that walkway where you used to walk up to the front porch now is actually going to be office space for both sides. They already had a floor, they already had a roof, so it wasn't as big of expense just to bump it out. And so it ended up actually working out very well. We're going to have quite a bit more space. We were getting on our side, and I'm sure City Hall side, we're getting to be pretty cramped for both. So now this actually makes everything ADA accessible. It makes our evidence room more user-friendly and easier to use. We actually had 2 different places where we'd lock evidence. So now it's going to be in one area. And then as a police department, we end up with a training room too, and a good interview room. So we had a room that was interview, training, sort of meeting, everything else all in one. When you start doing interviews on somebody one-on-one, you sort of want to have sort of what you guys have here. You have a setup to where you have the cameras and everything else. So it's nice now we'll have a room dedicated to that. So to answer your question, it's going well. We're not way behind schedule, which is a good possibility. Obviously, everybody knows we ran into quite a few different snags. One being this was quickly thrown together after the tornado. Mm-hmm. The police department was where the Rose Garden is. It was wiped out in the tornado, and so they moved it down here, quickly threw it together. They did all the fill inside with sand, which is neither good nor bad. They just happen to have sand, I would assume, somewhere, and so they decided to use all sand. When they started digging foundations, that sand was just like an hourglass, and it started running out, and so you had to stop that. And so that ended up being a little bit of an expense where they had to get that taken care of. It actually came out very well. The way it worked out very well, and we got that taken care of. And we were, I think, less than a month behind schedule, and I think they've caught some of that up. So we're assuming we'll be in there by June 1st at the latest now, and hopefully that they stick by that. But they've first they ran into too much rain, and it got too dry, and then it's just been, you know how it is. It's Iowa.
Yes, Mother Nature never cooperates.
Yes, never. We're in there quite often checking up on it, and they're a really good group of people that are working on it. So it's moving forward.
You mentioned a little bit about code enforcement. I know when we first talked, you wanted to talk maybe just a little bit about that, what that entails. Yeah,
I can. So it's been something on the forefront with the city council and the city officials. So the code enforcement department, we actually just hired on Hunter Ortmeyer, and our other code officers, Richard Johnson. Tomorrow will be his 1-year anniversary. So we have 2 new guys. They're fairly new. They're both in it with their feet running, doing a really good job. And what code enforcement entails is sometimes law enforcement, people don't understand exactly what law enforcement does, and we handle such a gambit of things. But code enforcement, they're doing the nuisance violations. So they're doing the long grass. They're doing you didn't shovel your walk. They're doing the junk in your yard. They're doing the junk car in your yard. But then they're also doing on top of that, and that's what the council really wants to focus on to try to clean up our community. So we're really to that point where we're trying to get out, and this is a good way to meet people. So it's one of those things. In the past, I think a lot of times what we did is we sent you a letter. We're like, hey, Trey, you have some junk in your yard. You got to get this junk taken care of. You get it in the mail. It didn't make you happy. You're like, hey, the city's on me. They blah, blah, blah. So now I encourage both these guys, get out and speak to people. Go knock on the door, talk to them, show them what you think is junk. Let them talk to you about it. Give them their day in court with you right there. And then they know what to clean up. They know why we're doing this, that the council's really focused on this. And it gives them a chance to talk. People want a chance to give their side of the story. And when they get that letter that says, hey, you have 10 days to clean this up, and there's no way to talk to, it can be a little disheartening, I'm sure. So that's one of the reasons we try to get out. So they're doing that. They're doing the nuisances, the grass, the snow, and everything else. And then besides that, they do rental inspections. So we have 900 and some units that are rental units in Charles City. So we divide that in 3 years, you're doing 300 some rental inspections a year. And what that means is they actually physically go into that unit, whether it be an apartment, a house, and then they go through all the safety factors in there. Usually the first time is eye-opening for the landlord if they haven't had one before, because they're like, what? I need carbon monoxide. I need smoke alarms. And there's different places you need smoke alarms. And a lot of us don't understand that. Maybe when I first started, I didn't, but you need to have them in each living bedroom. So you need to have them outside those bedrooms. You have to have one. You have to have one by the kitchen, and you have to have one on every level of your house, whether it be basement. Let's say you have an attic that you've converted into just a sitting room or something. You still have to have a smoke detector up there. And then a couple of years ago, we also went with what the federal government and the state government is doing in the carbon monoxide, which is sort of a no-brainer, because as a landlord, you obviously don't want somebody passing away because the furnace malfunctions or anything else. So, but then there's so many safety factors you get into. You get up in a second story window and the windows can only open so far, sort of like in your car. They actually have safeties on them. So now they can only open so far so that we don't have kids leaning against the screen and spelling out, and falling a story down onto their head or anything. You got railings you have, and there's so many different factors, electrical and everything else. So they're in there checking those units. After the first year, it's usually fairly smooth because they go back and check them then again 3 years later, and they may find, minor things. One thing you find is that every time somebody moves out, they take all the smoke detectors.
Oh, geez.
So my guess is that what happens is, because they leave the mounts, I think what happens is the smoke detector goes off. And so they grab it, pop out the battery, and throw it in their kitchen drawer. And then they call their buddies, hey, I got to move. And their buddies take everything in the drawer and throw it in a box. They're always missing. So then the other thing they do is they do all building inspections too. So they issue permits. So if you're going to build a new garage or if you're just going to shingle your house, they're going to be there, and they're going to be the guys that come and they issue the permit to begin with. And they're going to show up and see how the work's going as you progress. So, a lot of times people ask me, well, what am I paying for? What's my $50 for a roofing permit get me? Well, what it gets you is, a lot of times people don't realize that you put the ice and water dam, you'll see on the edge, and it's the black sort of tar sticks down. And that actually has to extend past your inside wall. So if you have a 24-inch overhang and that's 30 inches wide, you have to extend past their 24 inches. So a lot of people don't think that, hey, you need to actually put down 2. So we're there to make sure that if you have a large overhang, it has to go inside. And what that does is prevents, when you see those really bad ice dams in the winter, the water's melting, it's coming down your shingles, it gets down to the bottom where there's no heat coming up from the house now. It makes a little dam, the water backs up underneath that, it backs up under your shingles. And if you don't have your ice and water guard up there, it actually flows into your house and down your walls. So that's one of the things you get. You get to where they're trying to make it safe for your family, but then they're trying to make it safe for the generations that come after. Right. So whether it be the foundation of a garage or foundation of a house, we're fortunate to have some brand new houses coming in Charles City, which is very, very exciting for everybody. It should be, to get new houses coming. So this year we're on our second house already, which is really, really good. So we always welcome that. And they do other things on top of there, but those are their main duties. So it keeps them really busy. So it keeps me busy over there.
Yeah.
Talking to them, we meet and everything else. But
yeah, I would think that could be very time consuming, as when you've got a lot of irons in the fire.
It is.
Yeah.
And then I oversee the fire department, but I got a great chief there, Sam Deverell.
Yeah.
Amazing chief. And he really doesn't need much. When it comes to the fire service, he knows. I was volunteer fireman for quite a few years, and he knows. It's amazing what his knowledge is. It surpasses anybody I've ever met. So he's very, very good at his job. So
it's good to know.
It doesn't take, we just work as partners. It's nothing with him. So code enforcement, they're getting to, I think, they're getting to the point where they can work really well. They do a really good job. Richard had to fill in. Michael Molina he ended up resigning the position, and when he left, then Richard's been filling in and working a lot of hours. So I'm sure he's happy to have Hunter now on board and helping out. But yeah.
Cool. So, a day to day, it probably would seem like an obvious question, but what would be, you would consider your priorities as the police chief? I mean, we're probably thinking more of that side than the fire and code.
So a lot of times people think, well, how many people do you supervise? And so you take away code enforcement, you take away fire and everything else. And we're slotted for 14 officers. So there's 13 officers besides myself. And then we have Sienna Klunder, and she's our administrative assistant. So you're thinking, well, you oversee that many people. But when you really think about it, what I'm responsible for those people when doing supervision, which they can all work autonomous. The officers, we try to, most of the stuff that one officer can do, the other officer can do. And I've been really big on everybody gets their little niche in training. So whether it's going to be a taser instructor, whether it's going to be an OC, a pepper spray instructor, everybody gets that little thing, but everybody can do everything. So we do have an investigator, but everybody can do his job if he's gone. So it's not to the point where nobody can do that. Or We have some guys that love to run traffic. Everybody can run traffic. Everybody can do an investigation. So when we get a sexual assault investigation, they're pretty difficult. They're pretty sensitive. Obviously, we try to use the investigator at that time, but if he's not there, the other officers know what to do. So it's great that they can work on their own. I don't tend to try to work so much with the day-to-day operations. Captain Frankie takes care of those. And so I try to actually focus on, what's going on in the future, what can we move toward, and everything else. But besides overseeing them and being responsible for them, you got to think, I'm actually responsible for the safety of, 7,200 people and the people that commute in and out of here every day. So it's, and I'm trying to speak where I'm not bragging, because I'm not bragging at all. It's just something that concerns me. Do I lose sleep over it? Sometimes I do. But we have to be responsible as officers for the people who come into our community. They may not be living here, but we also have to be responsible for everybody living in our community. So, when we're getting somebody that's the porch pirate and he's stealing packages off porch, it seems like a small thing until you're the victim of that. And so a lot of times officers will say, hey, why are you messing with this? Why aren't you out doing drugs? Why aren't you out doing OWIs? If you're the guy getting the OWI, then he's saying, why aren't you out catching the porch pirate? So everybody wants to say, why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing that? But we have to do everything. And it's sort of, even when you get to something as minor as traffic stops. So studies show that traffic stops slow people down. They get people to be in compliance with the law. If they're not, what do we have? We have more accidents. And so if you're not getting the small stuff, if you're not getting the kids causing criminal mischief, then that can turn into something more as we move forward. So the porch pirate, you don't get the porch pirate, and pretty soon that porch pirate may move somewhere else. Why is the guy stealing from the porches? Is he supporting a drug habit? So everything's tied together. Or is he supporting some other habit? Or is he, trying to get his license back? Or what is he doing? So everything's interconnected. So a lot of times we get people doing the criminal mischief, and you'll find that, that happened either if they're adults because they were drinking. So maybe, you're thinking, well, we'll try to get the criminal mischief. And then you see in the paper that, hey, such and such got arrested for public intox. Well, if you're drinking, Trey, and you're down here at the local bar and you're going to try to walk to your house, we're not going to stop you. What we're doing is we're trying to get you to be safe. Right. It's when you're walking home. So when a lot of times people are like, well, why are you arresting people for public intox? It's because they attracted our attention somehow. So either being, that they were stumbling out in the middle of the road and we were worried about their safety, but more than likely they were doing something, throwing rockets, passing cars, doing something they probably shouldn't have done that got our attention. And that's why they ended up going. And then and that might be the only charge they got. So get a lot of people urinating in public or defecating in public. So you get those, and we can't it's hard to turn a blind eye on something. Right. So,
yeah, you wouldn't want your kid to see something like that, no. And then you've got to explain to them, what's going on. Yeah, I could see that.
Right.
Human trafficking is something that's kind of near and dear to me. I'm on the board of a nonprofit that helps with education and women coming out of human trafficking. This is little small town Iowa. Do you encounter maybe not actual trafficking, but the ramifications of that or the aftermath of that, or maybe it hasn't made it to Charles City?
We probably see more of the fringe of it. So, and you're obviously well aware of it, and I'm not going to, guess, give our audience a big lecture on human trafficking. There's a lot of training you can do, and from being on the board or whatever, that everybody should be aware of it. So when you see a human trafficking coming, if it comes to Charles City, to the Charles Theater or something, it's a good thing to go to, because people are thinking, well, that doesn't happen in Charles City. We see the fringes of it. We see people who are maybe being, it's sort of hard to, but maybe heading down that road to where they're going to be trafficked. Have we ended up with some? Yeah, we probably have. We probably stopped some without knowing it at certain times. We've stopped people that have been in a car, and hey, what are you doing here? And you question them. So we have the training to do that. Do we get into where we're busting a warehouse like on NYPD Blue or whatever? No. we don't do that. But hopefully at some point here that we're making a difference in maybe small things.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'd encourage our audience anytime Hunter, I'll bring up Hunter as a good example. Hunter's like, what kind of training can I get? Any training I can get that you guys are going to give me, I'm going to take. And I sort of see that in life in general is we should all be a little bit of excited on what can I learn more? What can I learn, whether it be free? There's a lot of things in our community that are free out there. And sometimes it's just good to go just to see the other side. We haven't done it here for a couple of years. In fact, we haven't done it for a few years, but we put on a Citizens Police Academy, the police department does. And it's usually 6 or 8 weeks, maybe 10 or 12. We've done some long ones. But then that one night a week, you come for 3 hours and the officers tell about human trafficking. They'll tell about OWIs. So they'll put you'll get to put the drunk goggles on that simulate you being intoxicated, or you can put on the ones that simulate you being under the influence of marijuana. And you get some insight on what we see as officers, but it also makes us a little more relatable to those people. But again, it's free. Anytime you can get anything free, I always encourage people to go to it. There's some training, coming up through the Charles and also through some other things. And anytime you can get to those, and I'm sure your organization would say the same.
Yeah.
Because when we're out traveling, and even if you're like, hey, I don't really travel anywhere, Chief. The only place I go is down to Des Moines or back. You're at a rest stop because you just couldn't make it any further. You're like, I had to stop. You may see something that, in your mind, you're like, that just does not look right. If it doesn't look right, call it in.
I think that's 100% true, especially with trafficking. Most of us aren't thinking about it every day.
Right.
And you could almost get taken off guard. And there's a great organization out of Cedar Rapids, Chains Interrupted, that is available to do training. And our organization is hoping to bring community things, so that we've had one with one of the officers there and hoping to have some more. But I think that's great advice. Anytime we can gain knowledge, especially, most people think they can't do anything to stop human trafficking. Right. That's not true. You can be eyes on the street. There's things you can do to, when you're staying at a hotel, most people don't know that. You can take pictures of the inside of the room, send it to a website, and they add that to like an AI database, so that if they see pictures of a trafficked person, they can say, wait, we know what hotel room that is. That's just one thing.
I've never even heard of that. So
yeah,
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah. So. It's crazy there's groups where you can actually, through law enforcement's involved, but you can actually chat with people who are buyers. That's what they call them in the industry. And ultimately you're trying to get them to stop doing it. But if they're a wanted person or if it gets to a certain point, you turn them over to law enforcement. So there are things people can do, even in little small town Iowa. So thank you for letting me plug that. And
I appreciate you being part of that. But it's a good segue when you see those small things, whether they be somebody that looks like they're not able to leave the car, or they're going to the restroom at the truck stop and the guy stands right outside the door, or anything else. When you see those things, call.
Yes.
So many times we get a lot of things. Hey, it happened at 3:00 in the morning. I'm pretty sure I heard somebody kicking the door in, and then I wake up at 8:30 and hey, my door of my garage got kicked in. Well, we're here 24/7. So it's hard to get people to call on the things they should. And then a lot of times we get frustrated as law enforcement because we get these little calls. Well, we have to understand too that these little calls sometimes add up to be big things, and sometimes it's just one of those things that they're nothing, but you called, and we're not going to, berate you because you called and it didn't turn out to be something. We'd rather you called and maybe, find something and stop something.
Yeah.
So
that's good advice. I wanted to talk just a little bit about mental health things. I know that police frequently get involved in mental health crisis, whether that's, a suicide attempt or somebody just having a really hard time. And I know if you pay attention, it seems like there are fewer places that you can send those people for help. Maybe just give us an update on what typically happens if that comes up in Charles City. Is it true that there aren't a lot of empty beds in the mental health facilities around the state, and kind of how that affects your job.
Well, I'm pretty sure just from you asking me the question, most of the answers, Trey. So
Probably.
I'll speak to the audience, but
I kind of led you there.
there aren't a lot of beds. It's becoming not a pandemic or an epidemic, but it's becoming more commonplace for us to deal with people with mental health issues. And so we do deal with it quite often. If you're going to harm yourself, we'll take you to the hospital. There's a process they go through there. The physician has to see you. And there's different things that our hospital has done to help alleviate it, but they can do a telehealth. So they'll call in and they'll speak with you. If you're the victim, they'll speak with you over the phone and over the computer and try to actually, get you to, get some insight on what you're going through. It is hard for law enforcement because it ties up a lot of our time in dealing with people sometimes that we aren't equipped to help. We don't have the bed. We don't have, the psychiatrist or the psychologist. We don't have those people, in our department. So sometimes it takes a lot of time for us and it can tie us up. So we've spoken with the hospital. We've spoken with the county attorney. We've spoken with a couple different people. We're actually right now, I can't say too much about it, but we're actually trying to work in something that would help the Charles City area greatly if it works out. So it's in the works right now. It's in some other communities, and if we can get it here, it would definitely help, because sometimes you see the people on the street and you're like, it's what are they doing, and everything else. But you have to realize that when they're breaking into a house that's for sale, we have a fairly common thing. Your house is empty, it's for sale. They see the sign, they go in and they use the restroom, use your shower, and maybe stay there a night or two or whatever. Us taking them to jail isn't always the answer. I mean, that's our choice, about our only choice most of the time, but it isn't the answer for them to get the help they need. Yeah. Do we have to take them to jail? Yeah, most of the time we have to, but is it the answer? No, they're not getting the help they need. So we're trying to figure out a diversion program where, yes, they have to face up for whatever crime they've committed, but let's get this diversion program to where we can help them now and solve the long-term problem so that we're not dealing with them every week. So our community, if you run a business, you may get one that just comes in all the time, and so they'll trespass them, is what it's called. They'll give them a no trespass order. They can't be on the premises. They call us when they show up. And that person then will show up and we either arrest them or we trespass them, give them at that time a citation. And they really need to get somewhere that can help them. And the answer is sometimes very elusive. So we'll take them. We've taken them to Northern Lights, which is the shelter over in Mason City. We've taken them down to Waterloo. We've taken them a lot of different places. And so many times they come back, and as officers, it's frustrating. We're like, man, we gave you the help. We gave you that area. But it's similar to an alcoholic, I would assume, is that unless you want the help at that time, I can't force you. I can't say, Trey, you're an alcoholic, I need to take you. I'm sorry, I keep using you as all the examples here. Everybody's like,
most of it applies, so you're good.
So they're going to say, Trey, I can't just take you and have you committed for 3 days for being an alcoholic unless you're ready for it.
Right.
And so it's the same with them. Unless they're ready for it, we can take them to the shelter and put them in there. And then the next night they're like, hey, this isn't for me. I need to be out. I need to be in. So, So is it difficult? It is. It's difficult for us to find the beds. The hospital, they get a hold of a magistrate. The hospital has to find that bed. And then so many times the sheriff's deputies, it's really hard on their manpower because they've got to take them down to Red Oak, to Council Bluffs, to Sioux City, to Davenport, to Bettendorf. They're taking them all the way across the state to try to get them into a bed that's available. So it takes a lot of manpower for them too. And our officers may sit them at the hospital on them if they're a violent offender, and they may sit on them for 24 hours sometimes before that order actually comes through. They're waiting for a bed to open up because somebody else vacated it. So it is. That's a big thing right now in law enforcement and across the state. So years ago, they got shut down. So the beds went from, one of the facilities went from 100 some beds down to 7. And part of it was staffing. Part of it was they just I'm not sure. They just didn't want to spend the taxpayer dollars on these. So it's difficult, but it's not an Iowa problem either.
No.
It's a nationwide problem. So I'll speak with counterparts, and you read the law enforcement publications, and it's all across the nation. So we're dealing with this, and it's only getting worse. And I don't have all the answers and everything else, but we try to focus on our community, and we're trying some, more creative things and seeing what we can do there. As colder weather comes, we'd like to try to get, some of the people who are unhoused, into somewhere so that they're not out on the street. That's important because we've been fortunate or unfortunate. I ended up on a roof the last 2 days, and I wish it was like today. So it would have been a little cooler over the weekend. It wasn't. So, but we have warm weather right now, but we know it's going to get cold.
Right. Well, it's good to hear there's some potential things coming down the road.
I hope they work out. So.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share? We'll move to wrap it up, but I put down anything funny or weird you wanted to share. You've already shared some pretty funny and weird things, but as we wrap up, anything you'd like to get out there before we finish?
Everybody everybody that knows me says I should write a book because I've had just so many things happen throughout the years. But one of them I just thought of, and it's not really funny. Maybe I'll end on a humorous one afterwards, but if you see something strange, call. And it sort of goes hand in hand with the human trafficking in that it could have been that. So years ago at one of the local hotels, people are hanging out at the pool. A young kid drives up. He stays at the hotel. He's hanging out at the pool too. They get to know each other, and they're like, hey, we should take a road trip, blah, blah, blah. Hey, let's go into town real quick. What happens is the young man, he's an adult, but he ends up in the trunk of the car. They have his debit card, and they start using his debit card. They have his car. They have him in the trunk. And somebody called because they saw something just a little bit off in this case. And they were like, there's something that's just not right. Huh. And this is, granted, this is years ago, so we don't have the technology quite that we have today. And Dave Derricks, he was my partner at the time. We're working 3 to 11. And we end up, along with other agencies, tracking this person in this car. And the car gets stopped with him in the trunk as they're crossing into the Mexican border down in Texas.
Oh my.
So they had taken him all the way from Iowa, and within 28 hours, I think it was, they were crossing the border into Texas or into Mexico after they had emptied all his bank accounts. So you're thinking, hey, geez, I didn't, and it was such a small thing. They were just like, somebody called and said, I think they were a worker there at the time. They're like, it just did not seem right that they took him in and blah, blah, blah. They took him in the car. And when they came back, he wasn't there, and it was his car. Huh. And it was very odd. So the whole time we thought, we ended up through the investigation, we thought they just stole his debit card and everything else. But then where was he? Throughout this time, why hasn't he turned himself in and everything else? And so we used cameras around town, and we did a lot of stuff on it. And it was just one of those things that you're just like, it gives you a good feeling in the end. Yeah. It also gives that scary feeling like, man, it could happen to anybody.
That ended well.
It really could just happen to anybody. Yeah. So a lot of other stories but
maybe we'll have you back on, and we'll say this is just Hugh unplugged with some funny stories.
You don't want to unplug me.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thanks for joining us. I learned a lot of things, and I hope our listeners did too. And we appreciate your willingness to come and spend probably your time.
Your organization also.
Yeah. So all right. Thanks for tuning in. We're hoping to get these episodes out on social media. If you see something you like, or if you have an idea for a future podcast, drop a note so that we can do that. Until next time.